She doesn't have the right persona. And my former associate gave away roles like he was giving away candy, as if he was bartering this, like he was really kind of acting as a producer. And why him? I'll tell you why him. There was another deal we were trying to do at the time, and I had put myself in a very bad situation where when a script I had called Angel West was being kicked around by the studios, I had put myself in a tight spot where I really didn't have a place to live, and I was semi-reliant on this guy. I wish I hadn't. It got to the point where I had a car loan go bad, and I was afraid they were going to take my money if I put all the cash I mentioned that I received into my own name bank account. Turns out I wouldn't have had it confiscated, but I got bad input from them. So I entrusted him with my cash, and to this day I don't know where it went. But if you look back on hindsight, 15,000 in, and an 8-figure tax, deduction, or should I say tax filing for the film itself, I did okay. Now here, this was all pieced together. Wayman screams, "Hey Mikey" here. Nobody could figure out who Mikey was. I don't know why he did that, but I had to give it a meaning because I kept trying to edit around it and it didn't work. These were outtakes. This guy was added at the last second. Another actor was supposed to play this very minor supporting role, but since I had no other footage, that was a miserable shoot. There was a guy, if you ever watch a movie called Challenging the Challenge, a workout video with a guy named Mitch Allen, Walmart distributed it for a little while. He tried to interfere with the shooting process, so all of this was a lot shorter and a lot less footage than I originally had. This was the only scene that you're staring at here that was actually shot at, that got edited together as intended. It was okay. These guys were supposed to be like the R2-D2 C-3PO clowns. I really modeled a lot of the core elements. I thought if you stuck the soul of Star Wars inside White Man Can't Jump, you'd have a great film, and that's what I was trying to make here. And they do pull off the comic relief, but unfortunately I didn't have the support of people casting this movie, because they actually went out and saw White Man Can't Jump on video shortly after we started filming, and they were appalled that there were characters in White Man Can't Jump who looked the same as the way that we had these guys looking. And I remember the casting director saying, well, if you want to make a real movie, what about, How to Make an American Quilt, a Winona Ryder picture that lasted 14 seconds in theaters and probably cost $25 million to make? Well, we didn't have $25 million. We had $15,000 to make this movie. It wasn't very much. And these were all people that we just kind of knew. Or we said, hey, we're filming a movie, come one, come all. And I remember the biggest hang-up was we didn't have written actors' releases. And then I found out years later you didn't need them. They were a convenience. And insurance companies that would insure films liked them, but overall, we didn't need them. Here, we create the plot. This gets us into, okay, what is this movie really about? And I turned it into, or should I say the Holy Spirit led me to turn it into, I've got one decent hustle scene, a couple of basketball sequences, and it's just this character learning to let go and get away from this life that's dragging him down. And as I've shared with Tisdale's family, I think it was a God thing that he was involved. I don't think anybody else would have carried this role any better. I mean, had we, all of these resources that you see in a final cut available to us at the time, I don't think the film would have turned out that much better. The music was just a good timing. Now, I use this song because there's a reason why the character's name was Willie. Back when we were doing this, turning a rap song, turning an old school 50s, 60s bebop song into a rap song that you could listen to in a dance club was very popular to do. And my goal at the time was to use the relatively ignored Willie and the Hand Jive. And I always imagined the music video to the Willie and the Hand Jive having a bunch of basketball moves in which the character is treating the ball kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters would. And I imagined the basketball moves being edited together like the hand moves of Willie and the Hand Jive. So the character's name was Willie, and that's how we named him. Shadow was obscure. The name was obscure because we were told we were going to have one of the non-Caucasian guys from the Phoenix Suns who was willing to be in our film. So I had to live with that. We had also talked about the idea of former Cosby cast member Malcolm Jamal Warner, and that died almost instantly. And then, of course, my former associate tried to take the same exact resources and apply them toward a fictional movie that disintegrated at the film lab, which he called 3 on 3, and at the last minute the State Film Commission in Arizona got behind him, and I had to sue him, and it got ugly. And then Sean Kemp mysteriously refused to accommodate some of the contractual obligations by his agent or manager, or some verbal stuff that may or may not have been understood. And my former associate sued Sean Kemp's people for that, and that's what ended his movie career, so to speak. I haven't seen him on the radar since, and don't care to. As you can see, the general plot of the film has just ended. I go into an epilogue, and then I show some credits. Again, there's really not a lot of movie to show here, and that's why I half apologize when people buy the DVD, but I just wanted to put something out to show that I could do this, and CreateSpace through Amazon allowed for that. Plot-wise, this was a really tough experience, but I learned so much. I learned what not to give up control on. I learned, when I was in college, I learned the accounting process. I learned the marketing process. I learned how to write things correctly. There were some tools that just flat out weren't available to us back then, unless you worked at, like Ed Burns worked at Entertainment Tonight. That's how he learned to edit. That's where he became known as an editor. That's how he was able to do his thing. And I didn't have any of those resources. So by the time Final Cut Pro came out, yeah, suddenly I had the tools to do something with it, and here we are. You know, Amazon hadn't, the Amazon.com hadn't matured to the point where we could upload the movie and just put it out, and anybody could go get a DVD. But now that we're here, we have an opportunity to tell a story that is really quite emotionally moving. I have yet to get a bad review on this. When people ask, well, where is the plot? Well, I wish I could have shot it, to be completely honest. You're going to kind of hear a double up on my voice because the ending closes with me talking. I'm currently using, I kid you not, a Logitech microphone to record this commentary. And when I was doing the commentary here, I reasoned that I was, the character, Willie, old Willie, he didn't have very good sound equipment. It's not explained in the movie. But you hear the buzz of my Macintosh external mic. Sorry. So it sounds kind of, homemade. Well, I got away with one, so to speak. It's not intended to sound cheap, it just, it's all I had. But I really, really, really like this speech, and I like the way we were able to use the slow-mo footage. A lot of this, the reason why we use the slow-mo footage is I figured if you use it edited in the right context, you're basically looking at the same exact footage twice, doubling the length of the resource of the film, giving you more edit options, and that's not uncommon. I remember the editors from Empire of Dreams describing that's how they cut some sequences in Star Wars. So long before I patched this thing together, I did my homework on how exactly to edit a movie so that you could make something of nothing, which is essentially what all great editing does. And what makes it great is you don't notice it. Now, as I mentioned before, portions of the sales of this go to the Wayman Tisdale Foundation. That's very real. We do take a portion of it, and my intention is to send them a very high percentage. I don't know what that'll be. I know that there's a documentary that was created. They, unfortunately, they got wind of the fact that we were not just going to sort of give it up to them and the licensing. They refused to pay for the rights to this film to use it in their documentary. So if you're watching the Wayman Tisdale story, you'll never see the fact that this film exists. Their producers weren't exactly forthright with us, and I touched base with Mrs. Tisdale off of Facebook, and we had a semi-civil conversation about some things. She's still furious about this movie, and I don't blame her at all. I really don't. I told her that. She's convinced that everybody related to this movie is in it for the money, and you know what? She's surrounded by people who are, so I don't blame her for that point of view. But we do send them a check as we get sales, and that's all going to depend on you guys as an audience.